No?
Nope.
It's a shame.
Thing's stupid. Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books. I'm here with Tom Roberge from Riff Raff. Now we can just say that straight out, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and the new store. How's that coming?
It's coming. I have been meeting with a lot of people about design stuff. Emma is hard at work, doing some other things. I mean, we're still not in the space, so can't really do much building, but there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done before we even get in there anyway. So,
when do you get into the space?
In theory, in 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So not terribly long.
No, we'll drive by today and see how the progress is going. But, we're still, there's no facade. There's no front wall. So we can't even get in there and build things and then lock the door at night. So until that, we're kind of stuck waiting. But it's coming along. So soon. You
do have a newsletter.
We do have a newsletter. We have not sent out a newsletter yet. We need to get on that. I think we're going to do it right after Labor Day.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you do have a website.
We have a website. We have a Twitter account. We have a Facebook page, I believe. And we'll soon have an Instagram account so we can, document the building.
Yeah, what would you do if there was no Instagram? There's this that's sort of an inside joke, but I'll explain this and everyone will understand. There's this conference that takes place in Rochester called the Upstate New York Social Marketing Conference that has the 4 people in town who are self-proclaimed social media experts charge people to listen to them, tell them how to do better at Twitter or whatever. And they have an ad that they filmed in which it literally begins with saying, what if Instagram didn't exist? And it's got a picture of a guy with a hipster Polaroid camera taking a picture of a skyline, and he shakes the picture, and then hearts start raining out of the sky on top of him, real, physical hearts. And I hate this commercial because I think it's stupid. And it's also asking you to imagine a world from 3 years ago. Could you imagine a world without Instagram? Oh yeah, I fucking for 35 years I lived in that world. I know that world. It's not that surprising.
There are a lot of self-proclaimed social media experts out there in the world. Let me tell you.
Yeah, there are. All that stuff. So I don't know. We didn't have a ton of stuff to talk about of news-wise because it doesn't seem like anything is happening. At all.
There's a bit. Things are happening, but they just seem so dwarfed by the reality of the election and the Olympics and everything like that, and everyone seems to be waiting for the focus to shift back over to, in the grand scheme of things compared to the election, more trivial things like art. So
I'm so ready for the election to be over.
Yeah, it's fascinating on a level and then horrifying on another, and that same level is the one that would impact our lives, and so it's hard to really truly enjoy it as a spectacle because at the end of the day it'll just ruin our lives if it doesn't go right. So.
Well, it's going to ruin our lives either way. Things are never going to get better, but at all. But I think this is going to be a just massive landslide and so boring and such a waste of every bit of energy and money and nonsense for the next 3 months on top of the past year. Fucking stupid. It's just stupid. And I hate it. It is
a tremendous waste of money. I was listening to somebody talk about the value of TV ads the other day, and they were like, well, yeah, they don't really matter until the very end. And I was like, well, why the hell are they wasting money on them now?
Where does this money go to in an election? Who the fuck takes this money? Because someone's making money off of this.
TV networks.
And that's it. It's just TV networks because there's all the stops, all the the travel, all that kind of stuff. So all those people just are making. So people are donating money in order to help out these giant dumb corporations that are continuing to fuck our lives.
Yes.
So then we can elect someone who will be inefficient, ineffectual, and not improve things for the vast majority of Americans.
Exactly.
I've got this pretty much right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're basically just preventing World War III from breaking out. They're just like a placeholder.
What they really need to do is focus on Kaepernick not standing during the national anthem.
I would love a national discussion about that issue.
I just don't think anyone's giving it enough attention right now.
Bad. Way off topic, but
it's all the same. But that's why there is nothing interesting is happening, because everything's just shitty.
Yeah, everything's being overshadowed, unfortunately.
Did you watch the Olympics? Are you an Olympics watcher?
I like the track and field stuff and the weightlifting. So yes.
Wow. Yeah. Was it fun? I didn't watch any of it.
I could watch like Usain Bolt run all day. If he wanted to have a sprint every night, I would watch that. And then I like the weightlifting, like watching a guy clean and jerk 450 pounds. Pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah. I heard that their like ratings were way down this year too.
Millennials, blame millennials.
That's what they did, and that's kind of amazing, because they're like, the worst case scenario is that millennials won't care and our ratings will be about this, and they're like, wow, our ratings were exactly that. Wait, I
don't think that like young people didn't watch. They're just smarter and figured out how to watch an illegal stream from the BBC or the CBC easier than watching on NBC, which you have to pay for.
Well, also like a bigger question, like who the fuck?
Because you want to watch these things live, not in NBC's packaged nightly thing full of, American-centric contestants, and it's not that interesting.
Yeah, so. Totally. But I don't know that, like, you like the specific sports, and most people maybe like a specific sport, but I don't feel like these are as compelling or interesting as like a spectacle as they were 25 years ago.
No, who knows?
There's just so much other stuff.
There's a lot more other stuff, and I don't know. It's hard to tell. The doping, and all of that sort of stuff. It's taken the shine off a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
everyone expects everyone of being on steroids. So much like regular sports, but
that's what I was going to say. It's just like every other sport, basically. Anyways. So since we don't really have anything else, we were going to talk about forthcoming books that you're excited to read.
So obviously these are in translation.
We don't have any. Well, we have one American one.
One that we will throw in for good measure because we like him. I'm going to start with, so I didn't do like massive, broad research for this. I didn't want to, just a little bit of everything from a few different publishers. One book, which I've already seen in stores or saw in a store this weekend because I think it had an August pub date, but it is an August pub date, but is being treated as a fall book, is Zama, which maybe you know more about. Which
I was going to mention because I think I'm going to use, I've been treating this with the minimal research that I did as the way of starting to plan out what books I'm going to include in my spring class.
Okay.
So that was one.
So this is by Antonio Di Benedetto, translated from the Spanish by Esther Allen from New York Review of Books, and he is Argentine. Yeah. It's considered a classic.
I believe he's dead, though, too.
I mean, the book is from 1956, so in all likelihood, yes, he is dead. But I don't know much about it beyond that it's considered a classic. So if you know, by all means.
All I know is what she talked about, the style and like how difficult. I think this book was supposed to come out in like 2015, like last spring even. But I think the complicated nature of it and the sort of like slow stylistic writing was what caused it to be delayed or to take longer than was planned on. And anything that Esther Allen really, really gets on board with and talks about and praising tones like that, I'm usually going to give it a go.
Yeah, she chooses very interesting stuff, that's for sure. I will say I'm reading here, this is from Publishers Weekly, but I assume they're quoting either from the text itself or maybe from the back of the book. This is Zama's provincial magistrate of the Spanish crown, obsessively seeking elevation to a, quote, stable position in Buenos Aires or Santiago de Chile. In Buenos Aires is spelled differently.
Oh.
With a Y. And then there's, it says service to the gobernador, which is capitalized. I don't know. So I feel like there's a lot of like weird stuff going on, even just like spelling and capitalization sort of stuff worked in there as well, which would obviously make it difficult to like, typeset and all of that.
So you're saying Buenos Aires like Ayres, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I just typed that into Google, and it corrects it immediately to Buenos Aires, the city of Argentina, and then Buenos Aires with a Y is a town in Trinidad and Tobago. For which I hope that probably is not related.
No. It's also then it mentioned Santiago right next. So
it's weird.
Anyway, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, probably.
Yeah.
It's political, like satire. Is that?
I believe so, and it's got paranoia in it, and like people in charge, mental problems, which is always fun.
Well,
the introduction references Juan Jose Sayer.
This should be interesting. Everyone I've heard, everywhere I've seen it, everyone's raving about it. So,
yeah, I think I've seen those same things.
Yeah.
There's like 12 people.
It's a small world we operate in. This is true. But, when everybody likes something that, because we know these people and trust their opinions, or, if we do, then we really trust them. So,
yeah.
I'm on board.
I'm on board too. Speaking of, the one thing we forgot to mention is that we almost have our full Best Translated Book Award committee.
Do you want to go over that now, or?
I can, just as an interjection, because that's a book that, since it's eligible this year, is one that I suspect is going to be in the running for the long list. But we almost have it. So if you're listening to this and you want to be a fiction judge, I could use you. By the time you listen to this, I may have already filled the last slot. We just had a couple people not be able to do it. We'll start on poetry side. So the 5 poetry judges will be Becca McKay, Tess Lewis, Katrine Ogar Jensen, Jared Annis, and Emma Ramadan. So you get firsthand knowledge of the poetry side. And then on fiction, Mark Haber's doing it again. Jeremy Garber's back. Lori Feathers, Monica Carter, Jennifer Croft, Steph Ovitz, Trevor Barrett, who does the Mooksies and the Gripes, which you may or may not know of, and then George Henson, who's a translator from Spanish. And one more person is the person. I thought I had someone, but it didn't work out. So I need one more person. Hopefully I'll be able to nail that down and put all this stuff online like very soon.
And then they can start getting their books.
They can start getting 7,000 books.
Yes.
Approximately. Yeah, so when you're talking about like the 12 people in the world that we see liking things, one other thing that they all are raving about, which I'm just including here because it's a book that I will not read, I'm certain of, but is one of these books that's like a big book, and like whichever blog reviewer, Twitter, Facebooker first finishes this book and gets to tell everyone about it is probably going to win some sort of grand, pretentious prize. And that would be Bottom's Dream by Arno Schmidt, the 1,500-page book with its own invented syntax and grammar and punctuation. That was translated by John Woods and is coming out from Delkey in September. And costs $70 and weighs like 9 pounds.
It's funny, before you even finished that, I knew it was going to be from Delkey. Because who else would undertake such a thing?
Well, there's a great story behind this. So there is a foundation. So Arno Schmidt never was very popular as a writer. His books did not sell well. They're complicated. They're whatever. They're sort of respected, but not greatly. And there's a guy. Oh God, what is his name? There's a person who's like a millionaire, very wealthy person who became sort of his patron and has like a foundation set up to help promote Arno Schmidt's books and to keep them in print and so on and so forth. So back in the day, Delkey published 4 volumes of like the Arno Schmidt series, like this early work, the main one, Nobody's Children, which gets a lot of attention, 2 novels, and then one other thing, but I can't think of what it was called. And they were all like funded by this thing, right? This organization, this foundation. And then at one point in time, there was like some problem where John O'Brien from Delkey was sending like letters trying to get information about another grant to do like the paperback version of these or whatever, because they obviously don't sell super well even, I mean, obviously, in nothing do they sell very well. The guy's name was Jan Philip Rietzma. And so the Arno Schmidt Foundation, he kept sending messages to this guy, and not getting anything back. That guy had been kidnapped and was being held for ransom at that point in time.
Is this a wealthy man?
Yeah. This is
okay.
And so he was being held for ransom, and after he came out, he was a little bit sketchy about, paying for things. So he was had a little bit of issue. So anyways, I think that for a long time, for years, nothing happened. And then out of nowhere, this book got announced. I assume that the foundation is functioning and helping out with this. But also, I don't know how long, if you've looked at the interior of this book, like, I can't begin to imagine how long it's taken John Woods to translate this. Like,
I mean,
it could have taken decades.
I was going to say, like, Satan Tango took like 12 years.
Yeah, and this is
a lot longer.
A lot longer. Yeah, like significant. I can't find a picture of it now, but of the interior. But if you see it, if you find one, it's crazy looking. It looks totally crazy. Yeah, there's one I found. That's like, there's like a middle block of text that's sometimes indented and sometimes not. Sometimes there are comments along both margins, the left margin and the right margin, as if the page is broken up into 3 columns. And it just looks absolutely insane. So that. I know I'm not going to read this book. I know you're not going to read this book either.
Oh, God, I don't have time for that.
I love long books. I just finished a 750-page book that I absolutely love. Like, the best. I don't mind like spending a lot of time with a single book. I don't know that I would be able to find a way to pull this one off, though.
What is it about?
Do you want to hear the description? Because it's great. I have had a dream past the wit of man to say what dream it was, says Bottom. I have had a dream and I wrote a big book about it. Arno Schmidt might have said. Schmidt's rare vision is a journey into many literary worlds. First and foremost, it is about Edgar Allan Poe, or perhaps it is language itself that plays the lead role, and it is certainly about sex and its many Freudian disguises, but about love as well, whether fragile or unfilled, or crude or wedded. As befits a dream upon a heath populated by elemental spirits, the shapes and figures are protean, its protagonists suddenly transformed into trees, horses, and demigods. In a single day, from one midsummer dawn to a fiery second, Dan and Francesca, Wilma and Paul explore the labyrinths of literary creation and their own dreams and desires.
That actually sounds pretty good, but wow. 96 pages.
That sounds a little bit vague.
I mean, sure, but
there's a lot to hold on to there, which is fine.
Wait, so is this the Bottom from Shakespeare? Presumably?
I believe so. I would assume so too, but this is all I know is that description and then who he is. And I've used parts of his excerpts of his books in my class because it's a moment in time where I can point out that you don't have to do punctuation the way that you've been told when you were in 4th grade, and that there are ways to like create your own voice that are very extreme, but I feel like giving them Kathy Acker, but that's about it.
So on the other end of the spectrum, and oddly enough recommended to be bought with Bottom's Dream via Amazon's clever little algorithm, is the new Krasznahorkai, The Last Wolf and Herman, which are 2 novellas packaged together because they relate to each other, which must come in at a total, 128 pages.
Yeah, so. I was gonna include this too, and I went to grab it because I know that the galley's somewhere in my office, and all I could find was the Herman part.
Well, yeah, little insider baseball. They had done, these were going to be 2 books initially, and then just whatever reason, New Directions decided to do them together. So the galleys were initially done separately and then done together. So there was a short run of galleys separate and then another one where they're just bound together.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting.
I've read them both. I think they're amazing. I love Laszlo's work, so this one is particularly good. It's just The Last Wolf and Herman. Herman is a hunter, and The Last Wolf is about hunting the last wolf. So they relate to each other. Although there's like some time that passes in between, and it's, like a lot of his work very vague and dark and unclear what has happened in between and how they relate exactly. You just have this sort of like spiritual connection.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed this because I hadn't picked up. I know the Last Wolf is in here somewhere because I swear I saw it. But what's interesting about this little Herman galley is that it starts on page 83.
Oh yeah.
So it is obviously like the second half of the book or whatever. But it'd be weird if you just got this and you open up and you're like, the fuck, 83.
There's even talk of doing them flipped. So one's
like one of those old school books.
Yeah,
I like those. I think that's cool. When was this one? This doesn't have a copyright page in it. Are these like new books of his?
They're relatively new. I feel like. Let's see. Yeah, if you just, I don't have a finished copy yet either. Do not know. I'd have to look it up on Wikipedia. But I feel like they're relatively new, just because of the plot or just the way they're written. You get a sense that it is more modern Europe than some of his other books. Let's see if I can spell Krasznahorkai still.
after you get out of practice, you just fail.
All those publicity releases.
Oh my god! It's 2009 is The Last Wolf, and Herman isn't listed on here that I can find. On the English version. Weirdly.
That is weird. Okay.
But there is it does say on Wikipedia that The World Goes On, short stories is being translated for New Directions.
Yes. That is happening.
That's cool. I'll go opposite of Bottom's Dream 2, and this is from, I just have this here in front of me. It came in a few weeks ago, and I have not looked at it until this morning when you were asking about books that we should recommend. But Phoneme Media, that's won the Best Translated Book Award a couple years in a row for poetry, is starting to do translated graphic novels, and they have one called Panthers in the Hole that's about some people put in the Angola 3 that are in jail, incarcerated. The one of whom was the longest serving prisoner in solitary confinement in U.S. history, who was released in February 2016. And they were put into jail, presumably for a crime they did not commit, but mostly because they were organizing prisoners with the Black Panther Party to demand better conditions in Angola. And it's a short, it's not short by the comparison, but it's like a 100-page graphic novel translated from the French by Olivia Taylor-Smith and written by Bruno Sinau with illustrations by David Sinau. But this looks pretty fun, and I like Phoneme a lot, so I'm definitely gonna read this. And this will take like 1/1,000,000th of the time it would take to read Bottom's Dream.
Yes.
I like Black Panthers.
Sure. Should be interesting. Angola, I know very little about Angola apart from what I read. Who is it? Kapuscinski has a book about it.
Yeah, he does. The one I know more Angola stuff is from Antonio Lobo Antunes. It has a lot because he was in the Angolan War with Portugal. He was stationed there. I think as a psychiatrist, in fact, of all things. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think it could be cool. Anything with that kind of government fucking over people and jail stuff always has some interest.
Let's see what else I have here. Let's see what you might know of. I feel like you probably know this book by, Ramon Cesar Vitoria.
Huh. What's the name of it?
Ask. The name of it is Martutene.
Oh, I was going to include this too.
Martutene. It's from Hispa Books.
Yeah.
100 pages, my God.
Fucking huge, man. It's like the Big Bass novel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know how you said his last name, and even as you're saying it, I can't picture those letters.
It's pretty straightforward. It's just a lot of letters.
Yeah, it's a lot of letters.
There's a Z thrown in. Cesar Vitoria, I think.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sure. I don't know. Basque is hard to pronounce. That's for sure.
It's probably something like Jones.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. There's not really much of a description. Everyone just said this is a landmark novel. Nothing compares to it. You know, it recalls the greatness of Tolstoy. Like, there's no actual plot description. It's just, you know, this is a big, ambitious novel about, you know, Basque country, basically.
And the Basque country is fascinating.
Yeah, I spent a little over a week there, and
cool.
it was really fascinating. The culture there is very, very weird. You know, for good reason. It's just, you know, still a very troubled place, but it's surrounded by, you know, these two very wealthy sort of countries. Three, I guess, if you include Portugal, who, you know, they're you know, at least for the last 50, 60 years or whatever, has been very straightforward and sort of stable. And in the Basque country, it's anything but that. To make for a good novel, I would think. And
especially because this seems to be set in more contemporary times.
This is
post-ETA Basque country.
Yeah, he started writing it in 1969. So I don't know when it was published, but
yeah, so it's not, yeah. One of the more interesting, someone who actually listens to this that knows about soccer more than I do might tell me that I'm wrong, but I believe that through this day, Real Sociedad, the Basque football team that's part of La Liga, the top flight soccer competition in Spain, will only let Basque players on their team.
Really?
Yep. And it was for the case for as long as I've been aware, but they might have changed that. But yeah, and they do fairly well. I mean, they don't do poorly. They're always stay up. They've been in the top 4 a few times. They're not a bad club. They're fun. I like rooting for them when I see them because they're like instead of being, you know, international in that weird in the way where you could just buy global players that are the best, they're like homegrown.
Well, there's something to be said for that. I mean, we saw this in the Euros with Iceland. Like, these guys all play together, you know, and you can't get that when you're swapping in, you know, the hottest commodity from wherever every year on a transfer, you know. So
yeah, there are two Basque soccer teams, Athletic Bilbao being the other one. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, curious about that book too. I have the galley of that somewhere. It's huge.
Yeah, over 800 pages. So
yeah, big one.
Do you want to talk about A Greater Music?
Oh, that was one of the ones I was going to recommend too. Yeah, she's so that's from Greater Music is Beswa, translated by Deborah Smith, who's Man Booker winner. Beswa's first book that came out here was Nowhere to Be Found, which we talked about a couple times, and even made the long list for the best translated book award last year, even though it came out from Amazon, which is surprising because they don't do a ton of like super literary things. But the Greater Music is an interesting book because Beswa, first of all, as an author, her story is great in that she translates German into Korean. So she's translated like Kafka, Jenny Erpenbeck. I forget who else are her big. Sebald is one of the big ones. And this has a Sebald feel to it, where it's a woman going back to Germany after a really horrid love affair, or horrid ending to a love affair a number of years ago. And she's back in Germany, sort of like thinking. So there's a lot of thinking, a lot of walking. There's falling in a river at one point in time. There's bad relationship with a guy. And it sort of pieces together what happened 3 years ago, I think it is, when she was there the last time and why she left. And so it's got this real emotional gut punch that's at the end of it that I'm not going to give away. But it's surrounded by the kind of like really well done, interesting, reflective, creating a sort of landscape of memory, writing that will appeal to anyone who likes Sebald or people of that vein.
It does sound very Zebaldian. Is that a word?
Yeah.
All right.
And she has another book coming out from Deep Vellum in the spring, or I don't know if it's December or February, something around there. And then we have another book of hers that's stories that's coming out next October or November. So she's going to be everywhere all of a sudden.
She's coming to the U.S. for a tour in October or November?
She is. She's going to be here in October, from October 5th until October 15th. So October 15th. So 10-day tour, mostly on the West Coast. She doesn't even come to New York. She stays in the west and southwest, and Chicago being the furthest east. And Deborah will be with her that entire time. But she's doing a couple things at Alta, a couple things up at like Elliott Bay, Powell's, and so it should be. I think that'll be really interesting, and for her to be here at that time is perfect because that book was just named one of Publishers Weekly's breakout fall indie titles too.
That's where I saw it on the list. It was cheating. Reading Publishers Weekly's list. But in case you don't want to mention it, I'm sure all of these details for all of these events will be on your website. So
as soon as
you're out if you're in that part of the country, come on and talk.
Absolutely.
What else?
Are you a fan of Schoen?
Schoen?
Yeah, the Icelandic writer. Because you just mentioned Iceland too.
I haven't read him yet.
Okay, I don't know if you would like him or not because the books are sort of they're poetic and drifty in a way that I don't know that always appeals to you. But his new book Moonstone: The Boy Who Never Was comes out in August. Came out in August.
I saw it in the store the other day. So
yeah, I have the galley in front of me and I have the real book at home. But he's always someone I find really interesting, and then his books have like this strange power out of like they're very minimal in a lot of ways. They're very atmospheric and image driven, but have like a interesting, compelling kind of power and way that they work. I've read, I think, all of the ones that have come out before this. There might be one that I haven't gotten to, but this one I'm planning on reading probably this weekend if I have a chance. I've been reading so many other things for work. It's insane. But I like him. What's that?
When do you start teaching again?
Fucking Wednesday. God damn it.
So it goes.
I know, it's all over. But it's all over and it's not even Labor Day. If we started after Labor Day, I'd feel better. But instead you have to start school and be like, well, summer's over. It's back to like doing all the things that you have to do. And then you have Labor Day and I have the usual existential dread of the end of times and the end of like any sort of freedoms and enjoyments and going back into like the slog that is the normal everyday life. But I really wish that happened and then we had to teach. I just don't think this is right.
Totally agree, even though I'm totally outside of any academic world in any way. Let's see, I'm trying to get through here. I'm going to mispronounce his name, I would imagine. Maybe not. Jan Lianke?
Oh, yeah.
The Explosion Chronicles?
Yeah.
Chinese writer who's translated again by Carlos Rojas. This was on the long list last year for the Best Translated Book Award. This is a novel. That was not with Grove, was it?
Yeah, it was. Four novels?
Yeah. 4 books. Yeah.
4 books, yeah.
This one again with Grove, 464 pages. It's got a cool
big
cover.
Books.
Really like the cover. Don't really know what's going on there, but it's compelling. I don't really know much about this. He's really good about satirizing contemporary Chinese society. That's all I really know about what they're saying about this book. So very contemporary, very funny, I would imagine, very sharp.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about this. The 4 books didn't really, I don't know, there's something about that format that never really quite grabs me the way just a big novel does. So
yeah, I agree. What's that? I've never
seismic volcano eruption. I'm into that.
No, there you go. Yeah, hell yeah. I've read one of his books a long time ago, and I thought it was pretty good. But I didn't read the four whatchamacallit, whatever they were. Four books. He's got a bunch of stuff now. I think that he comes out with like a new book every year and a half or so.
Yeah, he seems pretty active. Does he still live in China?
I believe so.
Seems
dangerous.
Dangerous? Yeah.
Probably. Do you
Here's a minor description. This book follows the excessive expansion of a rural community from small village to megalopolis. Yeah, how would the Chinese government, they'd be all on board with him just satirizing something like that?
I don't think so. But, yeah, who knows? There's always ways around things, right? Maybe he doesn't live there. This is where we look at Wikipedia really fast and pretend that this isn't This isn't, yeah.
The same thing happens on the 538 podcast. So if
I
they do it,
haven't-
you can do it.
I haven't listened to that one as much recently. I've been really deep into the Effectively Wild Baseball Perspective podcast, like deeply, way too deeply into it. It says he's based in Beijing.
All right.
So,
what else? I've got.
I was looking. I didn't realize that this already came out, but Sasha Stanashek, the Serbian writer who writes in German, has a new book out called Before the Feast that came out from Tin House, but I guess it came out in June.
Yeah, it's old news.
Jesus, I'm fucking behind. I know nothing. So scratch that one. Anything that's like 2 months old is out. So I have a question for you about this one. So I don't know too much about this book, but except that when I was at Book Expo, one of the big books that the Polish government had like a whole series of Polish related things because they were the guest of honor, right? Whatever you want to call it. And the one of the authors that was there that gave a reading was this guy Zygmunt Miliszewski. That's totally not right. And the book is called Rage, and he read a bit of it, and it was pretty cool. And it's like a thriller mystery novel involving someone who's like serial killing domestic abusers, maybe, according to the jacket copy. It's big. It's from Poland. It's translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones, who's really talented, and it's from Amazon Crossing. And this is one that I'm tempted to just read just blankly, like without knowing any more than that, just to see, because I don't read a lot of these kind of mystery thriller things at all, very rarely. But I feel like maybe I just want to do this and or possibly include it in my class so that people have something way different than the usual, like straightforward literary novels or whatever. But I didn't know if you had heard of this or if you would ever. The question is, would you read it at all? Or are you anti Amazon Crossing stuff?
How would I even read this? I can't print this out. I mean, I don't read digitally. So.
Yeah, but they have. I have a book. I have a book in front of me.
Okay.
I have multiple copies of this book, in fact.
I did see this advertised somewhere. I don't know what I was looking at on Amazon, and this got, there was a photo of this. I didn't actually click on it. Only now 428 pages. It's
like 428 pages of the like. There's not a ton of air, but there are other sections. It doesn't feel flipping through it. It doesn't feel that long. And given the style of writing, I don't think it would read that terribly long either.
No, I'm trying to get a feel for who he's compared to in terms of style, and there doesn't seem to be much offering. Of course, they're not going to be helpful. By which I mean the Amazon customer reviews
or the Kirkus review.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah,
gripping, lyrical, brutally honest, and cruelly funny. A terrific crime novel and better character study.
Okay, here's somebody who says it's similar to Mankell. Okay, not as gloomy as Mankell. Okay, I might give this a try.
So if it was there, the guy was really cool. That's why I think I meant just do it just to see. It's not my normal thing, but that's maybe even a better reason to read it. But this actually brings up a question that's sort of tangential, but might be interesting. So even when you say they refer to it Mankell, have you ever noticed that with those sorts of books, with translations in general, but especially with translations that are of genre type books, that they tend to only want to compare them to other translated books?
Yes. Well, yeah, we used to run into this issue when, you must do this too, with our sales reps or launch seasonal meetings or whatever. When the sales reps and the people who work for, when I was in New Directions, it was Norton. They would ask for comps. They always want to know, what does this look like? What can we expect? How should we pitch it to booksellers? And they only wanted other translated things.
Yep.
And we tried to sneak in some other things. And they're like, can you change this before the meeting? And I was like, well, why? If this is what it's like, then this is what it's like. Who cares what language it was written in?
I had a long argument about this recently with our distributor because they also insist that the books that you compare them to be not successful. essentially.
Oh God. I don't even want to. I had a big argument with somebody at Norton about this because I had compared, can't even remember what it was, but a book we had done to Savage Detectives, which was Bolaño, but Bolaño that New Directions had done. It wasn't even a Bolaño book. It was something totally different, but it was a similar sort of thing. And they're like, well, that sold 100,000 copies. And I was like, so we can't sell 100,000 copies of something? Like, why just immediately assume we cannot possibly do that? It's also a translated book, also from someone relatively unknown at the time. Like, they just put it into this little category and say, nope, that's what you're going to do. And, anything that happens beyond that is like a miracle.
Yep. My blood pressure is already spiking about this.
They don't want to put in the effort to like break something out,
Well, and also it becomes like a weird, what are you fucking comparing here? You're comparing your expectations of something not doing well to other books that were moderately successful from similarly sized presses, basically. It has nothing to do with the book itself anymore at all. And like any of these things that get fed into algorithms or whatever, where you're like, well, now we're stuck in a world in which the recommendations become like, if you like this big popular, if you like George Saunders, you'll like Kurt Vonnegut. But like you could publish a book that would fit and that someone who read one of those books would really like, but they're not going to be able to find it because we've already assumed that's going to sell not enough copies and you can't mention anyone else. It's not about like the quality of the books, which brings up a question for you too, as a bookseller and bookstore owner, is do you use the Edelweiss recommendation, all that copy stuff? How do you use it?
The only time that I don't use it in Edelweiss, I'm much more curious to know what a rep has to say than anything.
Yeah.
Especially because, these reps are pros at figuring out your taste.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So within like 5 minutes, and I have new reps now from when I had in New York.
Oh, that's true.
We're in the same territory. But, like we met, Emma and I met with, so everyone basically has 3 different Random House reps because their list is so massive and they do so much distributed clientele and all of that. So you basically always have 2 or 3 Random House reps. So we met with one of them, and within like seriously 2 minutes, like he totally understood our taste. He brought us some galleys that were like right up our alley. I was like, oh yeah, like this is his job. Like he gets it. So it's so much better to talk in person about these kind of things than just sort of look at the Edelweiss thing. Because I mean, on a bookseller end, when you look at Edelweiss, what you see, in addition to whatever the publisher or the editor, whoever fills in the data that ends up there, or the metadata, there's always like the description. There's usually something from the publisher, but then below that, the reps will add things in that are very clearly from the reps in their own sort of field. They don't do it for every book. They do it for things that they're particularly excited about, which, I mean, in case anyone has never sort of seen the insides of this, it's all dictated from above. Sales reps are told by the head of sales what book they are to be excited about. Mm-hmm. And it's usually based on what the advance was and blah, blah, blah. So it goes from there, and then you'll see that they add notes, but those notes are shared with every bookstore in their territory. Like I'm not getting a specifically tailored, commented upon version of the online catalog from my rep.
Right.
It's shared. So it's only in person do I truly get a sort of tailored discussion about a book. So Edelweiss, it's trying to make it more, friendly and all of that, but it's still like blanket. Like the reps don't have time to tailor the catalog to everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just looked up Bottom's Dream, since we were talking about that earlier, in Edelweiss, and here are the comp titles that they have for this, which there's not one way, they would let one of these go. If I had my pre-sales meeting and I had filled out this exactly this way, Consortium would have made me change 3 of them. Death of Virgil by Herman Brock, too old, too famous. House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, sold too well. Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, too old, sold too well.
Sold like millions of copies, right?
And Goethe Dies by Thomas Bernhard, which just came out from Seagull Books. That one they would let me keep. And then this is the key selling point for this. This is the fourth. There's other key selling points, like it's the German Finnegan's Wake, which I think is maybe, and that appeals to me. Like this is something that literally appeals to 14 people. In all of America. The last point, though, is kind of my favorite. Arno Schmidt has a dedicated cult fan base, but this work will appeal to a new and younger readership as well. He is a quote-unquote fearless author who quote-unquote thumbs his nose at taboos.
Really going for the teenager audience or something.
Because teenagers are fearless and thumb their nose at taboos.
That's right.
I don't feel like that's the case anymore. I was talking to one of my students who's going into like Take 5. Like after you graduate, you can get a free year at Rochester if you're doing a special project. You're one of like the 50 people or whatever it is that are smart enough to get it. And she was very excited to read like Doors of Perception because she had never read any books about drugs.
Fifth year of college.
I was like, do you guys not have you, like not? There's a question of experience, and then there's a question of like just pure curiosity of these things. Is like absolutely not. She didn't know anyone that had been into that. I think maybe like the world's become a bit more, bit less like I thought it was.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, but a part of it is the school systems are now terrified of allowing their students to read things like that because of backlash from the parents, because everyone's parents are deeply involved in everything their children do these days in a way that when we were kids, like I always say this, I read A Clockwork Orange as a sophomore in high school. Can you imagine? Never is that happening now. There's no way.
You don't
because
think so?
One student to go home and be like, so we're reading this book about rape, and they would never be able to teach it again.
Man, so you really, oh, Jesus. The depths of it are still always astonish me, I think.
Yeah, but also, that's the book? I mean, I have nothing against The Doors of Perception, but that's the book she's choosing to read about drugs?
Oh, no, not for the. It's not. She's not choosing to read it because of that reason. Her final project is on Aldous Huxley, but that's a book that she hasn't read, and she was excited to read that because of the drug thing.
That's fair.
So yeah, so it wasn't just like because she also like was reading The Invented Part by Rodrigo Frazan that we're coming out with in the spring, and that has a whole long section on burros. And she was like, "Is this all real?" And it's like, "Yeah, he shot his wife, like did all these other crazy things." So she started looking up and was like, "Jesus!" And like I don't think she was aware of who he was before then either.
I mean, Junkie is a great book. Naked Lunch, it is what it is.
I like all of those. Yes. Anyways, that's not to get too far off topic, but it's interesting these comp title things. And
yes.
and this ties in. So we're having an event here with our author Josephine Klugart, the One of Us is Sleeping. She's coming from Denmark, doing a tour. And one of the first events she's doing is here in Rochester. It's part of this program that we're doing with the local Writers and Books to promote locally published books and local publishers. Anyways, because Writers and Books has a lot of clout, they were able to get her onto the local NPR daytime interview program. Called Connections. It's like the big thing. It's like I don't know. It's NPR. It's 2 hours. It's talk radio. It's covering hot breaking issues locally and nationally, all that kind of stuff, right? So they called and were like, "We have this author coming. Would you guys like to talk to her?" And they're like, "Yes, that sounds great." Blah blah. But because it's a book in translation, we have to have other people on it. It has to be bigger and about translation and about all these issues. And I'm going to ask on this program if they've ever done anything so stupid for like when they have an American author on there. If they're like, "Oh, you wrote an American book, you're going to be on our show." Well, we got to make it about writing. We got to make it bigger than this. We got to have a writer, and we got to have a publisher on it. We got to have all these people because otherwise you just don't understand. Like how it feels like every time it's just going to get shit into that little hole.
Yes.
So frustrating.
It is, and that's the way people perceive all things foreign and sort of unfamiliar. Is they have to put it next to something more familiar in order to become like some bridge or something. You can't just look at the thing.
You can't just read a book about a woman's experience and talk about that. But if it had been written in English, I guarantee if they had her on there, they would not have had anyone else.
Of course not. No. She's the same book, but by an American woman, it'd be just fine.
Just fine. Anyways,
on having a man, because that's the other thing that happens, right?
Yeah. Well, all of our women books get books that we've done by women recently of the Danish Women Writers series get like less attention, fewer reviews than the books written by men.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is, and they don't sell as well. And it's almost like it's that situation of like, if we weren't to do like, because of a delay in one of the books that we're publishing, our next season, according to Consortium, is only 4 books. Because it's 6, we do 10 books a year, but it gets broken up into 4 and 6 because it's stupid. But because this one book was delayed, we're only going to have 4 books, and they're all by men. I can guarantee someone's going to point this out and criticize us. And at the same time, when we have done and gone out of our way to do all these books by women, we don't get any praise, which is fine, but B, that we don't get that support. We don't get that bump that you would hope for that from all these people that are clamoring for this.
Especially with things
claim to be clamoring for it.
Like Women in Translation Month and all of that. No?
Nope.
It's a shame.
Thing's stupid. What other books do you have?
Let's see. I've got one here called Umami.
I saw that too. I was curious about that. I don't really know what to make of it.
So it's by Laia Jufresa, who's Mexican. The translator is Sophie Hughes, whose name is familiar, but I couldn't tell you what she had translated.
She has worked with And Other Stories before, and she's around. I believe for a short period of time. I don't think I'm wrong about this. She used to work with Delkey briefly. She translated a book for Hispa Books, the one for Pushkin Press, and then this one. I don't know if you had to come across any of those.
Anyway, I don't really know what this book is about. So I'm just going to read this. It says, it started with the drowning. Deep in the heart of Mexico City, where 5 houses cluster around a sun-drenched courtyard, lives Anna, a precocious 12-year-old who spends her days buried in Agatha Christie novels to forget the mysterious death of her little sister years earlier. Over the summer, she decides to plant a milpa in her backyard, and as she digs around it, digs the ground and plants her seeds, her neighbors in turn delve into their past. The ripple effects of grief, childlessness, illness, and displacement saturate their stories. Secrets seep out and questions emerge. Who is my wife? Et cetera, et cetera. Why did mom leave? Can I turn back the clock? Okay. It has blurbs from Valeria Luiselli.
Who she looks sort of like. That's why at first when I was flipping through the Publishers Weekly thing, I was like, wait. And then I realized it was not her.
And then Alvaro Enrique. Francisco Goldman. So all the heavy hitters from Mexico. Trying to figure out if this is her first novel or not. She has a short story collection that doesn't appear to have been translated. Does not say. I'm guessing this is her first novel, just by the way they're talking about her debut and first writer and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
Doesn't really sound like my kind of thing, but I can see the potential here for some interesting stuff in the vein of like Valeria's, playful writing style. I don't know.
Yeah.
Curious.
I just saw the name.
This is from One World Publications.
Right.
Very small. I don't even know who distributes them.
They're distributed by PGW, but they're very big in the UK. They do a lot of the books. Like if you saw them as a publisher, just as a regular publisher, you'd be like, oh, they do a lot of big name stuff, a lot of literary fiction. Trying to open up their page to give you some specific examples of lying, like the Paul Beatty book, The Sellout, that one where they do the UK version of that. They do a lot of like the UK version of stuff that the Marlon James. So they're big, but they don't do a ton of books that they have world rights to.
All right. Let's see, what else do I have here? Do you have any more?
Not really. No, I do not.
I have one more that I flagged only because it seemed interesting, though I know nothing about it. It's called No Knives in the Kitchens of This City by Khaled Khalifa, who's from Syria. and it's about it's okay. It says set between the 60s and early 2000s. No knives in the kitchens of the city unravels the system's fear and control under Assad. With eloquence and startling honesty, it speaks of the persecution of a whole society. Which, I mean, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly it. So it says, irrepressible Swasan flirts with the militias, the ruling party, and finally religion, seeking but never finding salvation. She and her siblings and mother are slowly choked in violence and decay as their lives are plundered by a brutal regime. So, probably dark, but hopefully so. This is from the American University in Cairo.
Oh, I just got there.
They have really good taste. And the translator is Larry, which is spelled Leri, Larry Price. Don't really know. There's not much about either one of them. Okay, so this is his fourth novel. He has one called In Praise of Hatred. He's written for TV and screenplays, all kinds of stuff. And he won the Naguib Mahfouz Medal for Literature in 2013.
Very cool.
That's it, apart from, yes, the Jonathan Lethem book we wanted to mention coming out in October. We all like Jonathan, partly because he's such a huge Philip K. Dick fan, and it seeps into basically all of his books, and who doesn't love that? He's also just a really good person, and I like that he, does well, and people like his books. He's always around supporting, promoting other writers as much as he can, so...
He's a big fan of Rodrigo Frazan, who I mentioned earlier, too. Rodrigo Frazan includes Philip K. Dick in every one of his books.
Oh, always good. This one is called A Gambler's Anatomy. There's learn more. Okay, hold on.
The line on here is a devilishly and entertaining novel about an international backgammon hustler who thinks he's psychic. Too bad about the tumor in his face.
Can't wait. This sounds perfect.
See, that sounds like a book that would be fun to read.
Yes, exactly. So what else? Oh, I wanted to mention I am reading Underground Railroad, Colson Whitehead right now. It's really good. There's not much else to say.
Do you like his other books? Have you read his other books?
I've read a couple. I definitely read John Henry Days.
Yeah.
And The Intuitionist.
Yeah.
Okay. I never really loved his writing style. They were perfectly fine books to read. I was never like blown away or anything like that. And again, the writing style in this book is not particularly amazing, but it is very good. And the story he's telling is very good. And the way that I hope I'm not giving away too much here, but the way that the sort of magical elements come in is very well handled and very, I don't know, it really plays with, this stuff is history that we all sort of learned as children, and then, you start learning it young and then learn it all through college. And yet it still sort of seems, there's something about the nature of this particular history that you sort of removed. Like there's something in your brain that says, oh God, this couldn't have happened here, not this recently, or something like that. At least in my head, like there's a lot of denial, right? Like your brain is just like, this happened far away. And you can't quite picture how things worked. And so you end up like filling in the gaps with your imagination. And that's basically what he's doing, is sort of embracing that imaginative sort of aspect to it. By which I mean, like, the Underground Railroad is actually an underground railroad, like a railroad operating underneath the soil in the South, which is really cool. But it's not like, it's not like you're watching Terry Gilliam movie or something. It's not truly like a fantastical thing. It's just there in the background. It's part of the story, and it helps sort of move the plot along in an interesting way. Huh. Anyway, really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot denser than I thought it was going to be. It's slower reading than I would have thought from his style beforehand. But it's really good.
That's cool. It's fun. And this is a book that I'd get the audiobook of. I
can imagine that being very good. He's also done a lot of research, and it's incorporated in a very good way. Like it's seamless. Like, you just, things get put in there, and they're fascinating sort of tidbits and details about history that not everyone knows, and it's just really fascinating.
It is funny. So I'm on the Amazon page, and I just put in Colson Whitehead just to pull this up, and it lists Underground Railroad, The Intuitionist, Sag Harbor, Zone 1, Class of New York, John Henry Days, and then all of a sudden it has Here I Am, a novel by Jonathan Safran Foer, 3 times in a row.
What?
I feel like I bet you on the comp titles, those two probably reference one another. Just because. But yeah, I have no idea why that is. But it seems pretty obnoxious. I like that I saw a review of this Jonathan Safran Foer book, and it was referred to as basically one long Hallmark card writing.
Wow.
Yeah. That had a few examples. It seemed pretty right. Anyways, yeah, I don't have anything else. Do you have any final comments or?
No, I was in Montreal this past weekend.
That's a fun place.
Fun place, the land of my people. There is actually a statue devoted to my family somewhere in the outskirts of Montreal that I've never.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of Roberges up there, and then they all moved down to New England. Anyway, so this is shameful, but I'd never had poutine.
You've never had poutine?
No, never really appealed to me, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, but like, it just is one of those things I think you'd come across.
Well, it didn't really show up in New York until, at least, at a lot of different places until relatively recently. I gotta say, I don't need to have it again. I had it. It was fine. Cheese curds are confusing and not very good to me.
I love cheese curds. I don't like gravy.
Yeah, the gravy and cheese curds, it's just too much.
There are variations, though.
Yes. I get why people like it. It's just not for me. Little overrated, gonna say.
I think Kaya's gonna come at you. If she could hear this, she could come at you. But the door's shut, and I'm on the headphones, so you're not gonna. Yeah, you have another couple days.
I will say I did visit Drawn and Quarterly, the bookstore in Mile End. Of the same people who published graphic novels up there. Really cool bookstore. Really, really enjoyed it.
That's cool.
If you're up there, go by and see it.
Yeah, I like going to Montreal. Yeah, a lot. It gets fun.
That's it. I have to go meet with the lawyer. Talk about getting a liquor license for our bookstore.
Oh boy, is that hard to do?
I think it'll be fine. Our lawyer has said he has never been denied, so I don't want to be his first. Do not get one.
Yeah, that would be bad.
That would be bad.
That'd be shameful. Yeah, well, good luck with that, and I guess we'll get this up soon as we can, and then I guess we'll talk in a couple weeks about something. Things will start happening again after Labor Day, presumably.
Yes. And I'll have more to talk about with the bookstore too. And yeah, obviously these books that we're talking about and others will start, becoming available and discussed, and there'll be more to talk about.
Yeah. If I ever read a book for fun again.
Someday.
At the moment, I don't feel like that's going to happen. I think I blew my wad on vacation. Now I'm just behind on everything.
Oh, wait, there is something we have to mention.
What's that?
You were on TV, sort of.
Oh, Jesus. Were we going to talk about this? Yeah, we could have a whole long breakdown of the I Love Dick pilot. I do have one question for you, though. Okay, so, because I know you have to go because you have a meeting. So we'll pick this up in the next one and go through, like, your reactions to it and the interview and any other random stories I can tell you. But here's a question for you. So there are 3 pilots that are premiering on Amazon in this pilot season. They each have 1 episode based on metrics and people's reactions and whatever. Amazon will fund 0 of them, 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them. There's no competition, but they do use all this information. Okay, so the 3 are The Tick, I Love Dick, and Jean-Claude Van Johnson, I believe is the title, right? Starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. which of those three do you think has the highest rating on an Internet Movie Database? And what number would that be?
What? It's on a scale of 10, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Tick.
Wrong.
Really?
Yep.
People love that damn thing.
Yeah, I've only watched I Love Dick.
Okay. Yeah, me too. But I'm curious about this JCVD thing.
Okay, so that is the top one. It has
Really?
the one I checked yesterday, it had a score of 8.3. It's 8.2 today.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So whoops, that was the wrong button to hit. The second one is the Tick. That one came in second. It had a rating of I think 7.1, 7.5, and I Love Dick not doing so well at all. 5.5.
Ooh.
Yeah. So which of these do you think are going to get picked up?
I think the other two, and probably not I Love Dick.
See, I think I Love Dick is going to be in there because of Jill Soloway's reputation. I think they clear, because apparently Transparent also did pretty poorly in pilot season, but they thought that it would get a lot of critical praise and win them awards, and that was just as important as the initial ratings from viewers. But I'm thinking it's going to be Jean-Claude Van Johnson and I Love Dick.
All three of them, huh?
No, just two. I think the Tick will be left out.
I think all three. If they're going to fund the one that's
the least popular,
low rung, then why not fund all three?
I mean, they have enough money. Obviously.
Clearly.
I got an email yesterday, the last story about this, and then we'll talk about it in detail later, because I have a lot of things to say about it, I think, especially in relation to people's reactions to it. But I got an email yesterday saying that they had fucked up our payments for being an extra, and that they're sending us a new check. So apparently,
okay,
which just, it feels sort of random and out of nowhere, because this happened they're like, for everyone who was there on June 6th, and I was like, June 6th, and I went and looked, I was like, oh, that was the day I was there. Like, we're sorry for all the screw ups. We'll be sending you a new check. So okay,
all right, but yes. So we watched it, and I knew you were in it since you had told me. And I knew that you were in the party scene as an extra in the background. And yeah, you are there. Definitely can see you passing in the background more than once.
Yep.
There's even a scene where, like, I think you're just sort of looking at Chris and you're in the background as she, like, contemplates something or other.
Yep. I'm in there a lot.
You are in there a lot.
For, like, because of all the people, there were 100 people there. And there were, like, friends of mine that I know, like, I knew what they were wearing. I was like, they will definitely be in there for any number of reasons, but they were in there more prominently. They're in there a lot longer. They have, like, distinctive clothing. They're, like, whatever. And they're not there at all. So, yeah, It seemed kind of crazy. And a lot of scenes got cut, or a lot of bits from it got cut, obviously.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's ones that I was like, oh, well, there'll be this thing about to happen. And it's like, oh, no, it didn't. Yeah. Anyways, okay, so next time we'll talk more about the critical reaction to that. Because I'm curious to talk about that with you, since you've also read the book a while ago and really like it.
Yes.
And then you read the Flavor Wire review.
Yes, which made no sense.
Made no sense. But anyways, okay, till next time, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, see ya. That's it. I have to go meet with the lawyer.